Hello everyone. We are back at Jasper National Park, and on this morning we woke up early and prepared for a 5 to 6 hour, about 12.5 kilometer hike that'll take us up to the Bald Hills. Getting our gear ready, we then drove out of a pretty quiet town of Jasper, even if it was 8 o'clock in the morning. You may recognize this road from a previous Jasper video that we did. The Bald Hills trailhead is found at Malign Lake, and parking is at the furthest lot at the end of the paved road. The drive from Jasper is about 40 kilometers. We had arrived, but had to pause for a moment to take in the beautiful views at Malign Lake. With a view like this, it was difficult to continue on. The trail we took was the number 23 trail, and it is rated as hard, and I would definitely recommend hiking poles and being in good physical condition. Various sources give different numbers, so it's really hard to nail it down, but the elevation gain from trailhead to summit is somewhere in the area of 500 to 600 meters, with the summit itself being 2,300 meters above sea level. So this will get you high above the tree line and give you spectacular views of the surrounding mountain peaks, which for us at the time was in October.
Once we get to the top, we're going to make sure we go right before we go left. Although I guess it doesn't matter, does it? Because if we're coming back down anyways.
Yeah, we can catch all those. Here we were checking the trail signs, as there are loop sections that we also wanted to make sure we hiked so as not to miss any areas of the trail. Yeah, bear presence is everywhere here. You see it. Parks people gave a warning saying there was bears in the area. We got our deterrents, so we'll go on. I will say that we see no bears on this particular day, but as the previous clip showed, there was a lot of evidence that they were around. This part of the trail was no doubt probably the toughest, but we still had time to check out the smallest detail and stop and enjoy the beautiful morning light. This imagery gives a very good idea of how steep this section of the trail was. And I'm using a GoPro too, so it has a tendency to flatten images out. We also stopped every so often to look at Malign Lake laying below us. Our climb continued to the summit. Glad to be finally on flat ground, we searched for the first lookout that was along the trail. But before that, we got a look at some of the elevation left to hike. However, we later realized that this was not the summit and there was more climbing to do after that. And that's when I pulled out my GPS to make sure I knew exactly where I was and how much hiking I had left to do. We had arrived at the first lookout and enjoyed our rest while taking in fantastic views. Malign Lake was beginning to fall far below us under the clouds. Rested, it was time to push on to the summit. Along the way, we found what looked like marmot burrows. However, we were never able to see them. At this point, we were now above the tree line and had full views of the mountains and surrounding landscape. Quickly checking a sign, we went on to the Bald Hills summit. However, as we climbed, we realized that this area of the mountains was highly broken up due to erosion and weathering, and as we found out later, would make for some difficult climbing. The Bald Hills I found was very much a mixture of different kind of trail types, from wooded meadows, steep climbs, plains, flat areas, and rocky outcrops. However, for now, the summit was directly in front of us. So I think we're getting close. It looks close. After a long and hard hike, I was glad to take off my backpack, get some rest, and enjoy the surrounding views. As mentioned previously, it was now October and we could already see snow forming in the higher ranges. The climb to the summit had definitely worked up our appetites, so we broke out the stove and prepared our meals. And while we were doing that, other groups along the trail had begun to join us. This was a great place to spend the afternoon. Looking down once again, we could see the boat cruises that were now occurring along Malign Lake. Sitting in a place like this, I can honestly say was the best meal I ever had. It was truly a fantastic experience. After a very enjoyable rest, we decided it was time to head down and check out other parts of the trail we had not hiked yet. Taking one last look at our spot, we continued on our way. The trail was clearly in front of us, and we could see the two peaks we would have to hike. But of course, we had to stop once in a while and take in the views. As we got closer to the peaks, we realized that this was not going to be an easy climb. But carefully and with patience, we continued on. We were then grateful to finally have reached a flatter area. Reaching another lookout, we paused after a tough section, but once again took in the amazing views of the area. Rested, we continued back down and once again found ourselves in the forest. Yeah, we had noticed in many places that parks officials were blocking people from making their own trails, as you can see here. Staying on trails is important to prevent erosion and crushing wildlife underfoot. Authorized trails are also carefully chosen by park staff to prevent people from getting into danger. The bad thing about it was that we actually witnessed a group of girls walking down the side of the mountain and right through the wildlife, and we're kind of wondering whether we were going to have to pull out the first aid kit. At this point, most of the hike was behind us, and we could see that we were nearing the trailhead. Along the way, we met up with a couple and traded stories of a great day. We were all tired, but we agreed that we would do it again.